Hey everybody, welcome back to Young Engineers of Today. I'm sorry about being a few minutes late here. Ran into some technical difficulties. And by technical difficulties, I mean everything crashed on my computer. And so I had to fix that. But we're here now, and so that's the important thing. We're going to give SketchUp a try today. Hopefully that should work out better for everybody. If that does, then fantastic. We will continue with that. I don't foresee us running into huge issues with it like we were with 123D Design, mostly because this is a piece of software that is still being worked on and is not abandonware. So that should be a massive improvement already over 123D Design. But yeah, so let's go ahead and let's get started on that. I didn't want to assume that anybody had it downloaded, so I'm going to walk through the downloading process with everybody as well. Just want to go to SketchUp.com, and then from there, as you can see, there's this big red button over here that's labeled Download SketchUp. Bam, I'm going to click on that. And then step one is figuring out basically whether you want the free version or the paid version. Obviously, we want the free version. So the easiest thing is, yes, the SketchUp.com/download. So that should be fine. The easiest thing is just to select personal projects, because really we could do educational use, but then you have to provide a school name, and it'll try and sell you a little bit on SketchUp Pro and stuff like that. So if we just say personal projects, we are guaranteed to get SketchUp Make, which is the free version. All you have to do is provide an email address. Uncheck the Send Me SketchUp News and Tips unless you really want that. And then under profession/interest, you can just put other. Select your operating system of choice, whether it's Windows or Mac, and then agree to SketchUp Make's license agreement. And then go ahead and download it. So it will begin downloading that. We'll give that some time. In the meantime, let's talk a little bit about it. I mean, we talked about CAD programs previously, so you guys are at least aware of CAD programs at this point, computer-aided design. They allow you to design 3D models using a computer, and that can be for artistic purposes, that can be for engineering purposes, that can be for whatever. In this case, we're learning it potentially with the idea of being for engineering purposes. So that's why we're using something like SketchUp, because different brands of CAD programs, different varieties of CAD programs will be better for different interests. If you wanted to go more an artistic route, you would probably want to do something more like ZBrush or Sculpt or Maya. However, if you wanted to go more an engineering side, you want to go more Fusion 360 or SolidWorks or something like that. So it all comes down to really fulfilling the need that you are that you have, in essence. So let's see here. It looks like the download is complete. So let me go ahead and open up the installer. It's going to ask for administrator permission to install it, and it should be pretty fast. Now, the thing about SketchUp that's a bit unfortunate is it's a little bit less intuitive than 123D Design, at least in my experience. 123D Design is very easy. You can just drag and drop shapes out there and, sort of slap them together and create a design from it. SketchUp Make is a little bit more strict than that, but it is still a very versatile program and not too hard to get the hang of. So we're going to spend some time getting used to this one. Let's see here. the Visual C++ runtime libraries. Yes, we do want to install those. The whole purpose of this set of lessons, though, is basically just to get familiarized with CAD programs. Like the presentation said last time around, learning one does make it easier to learn other ones. They all tend to do things a little bit differently. However, it does give you the ability to think more in that mindset, insofar as taking complicated 3D designs and breaking them down into sort of their elemental shapes, the things that make them up. So, you might have some sort of weird shape and you can be like, well, that's just a cylinder with a cone and a sphere cut out of it. Or you can be like, okay, this is a box, and then I'll cut out, other boxes, or I'll slap a cylinder onto the side, or some sort of weird paraboloid thing. And that's how it can be easier, because you get better at distinguishing those sorts of things. And then now all that's really left is the waiting game. Oop. And oh, they changed how the guy standing in the corner looks. Oh. I remember that guy. He looked like Stan Lee. You're saying he doesn't look like Stan Lee anymore? Wow, I don't know. He doesn't have a, well, he didn't have a face before, but he had glasses and a mustache, which is a big part of the reason why I thought he looked like Stan Lee. Yeah, because then your mind can fill in the blanks and sort of append whatever face you want to it. This is a Visual C++ runtime libraries thing. It's got a lot of libraries to install, apparently. Follow the installer instructions. You can do it. I feel like that's equal parts encouraging and condescending. Yeah, you can go ahead and get rid of 123D design. Yeah, we're not gonna take that path. Simultaneously deleting things on my computer to make more room. So this should be interesting. How many runtime libraries are there?
Your target has been eliminated.
Oh, well, the trash can emptied. Man, had I known. that it would be doing this. This does seem odd, though. Because it never actually fills all the way and then it restarts, and it always gets to the same point. Last I saw, it only required like 450 megs or something like that of space. Why is it downloading? Why is it downloading that again? Cancel. Oh, it's because this is something that automatically downloads on this page. Research, meeting SketchUp hardware and software requirements. Yeah, so you recommended 700 megabytes of available hard disk space. Minimum is 500 megabytes of hard disk space. It should not take this long to install 700 megabytes worth of stuff. There we go. Hey. Why is this? What? What? Now my installer restarted. That is peculiar. Very, very peculiar. Well, whatever. Something must have happened. Because I don't have it on my computer yet, so. You know, if I had known this, I would have actually installed it in between classes. I don't remember it taking this long before, so I apologize. Nah, um, nah, Steam isn't downloading anything. It's just odd that it's doing this. My hard drive has been acting up recently anyway, so I kind of wonder if it's reaching the end of its lifespan because I didn't exactly buy it new. I, I should, but I'm not made of money, so I can't, unfortunately. What I might end up doing is saving up the money to buy a second 1 terabyte hard drive, um, just so I'm not constantly reading and writing to the same hard drive. Because that might help speed things up. But yeah, one day I really would like to get an SSD. Put my operating system on it, maybe a couple of other things. And just bask in the speed. All right, well, it's done. Cool. That's happened. That was an experience. That was an ordeal. But we're all installed now, and it only took 20 minutes. So let's go ahead. What's up, Jacob? Yours is taking centuries. Oh, geez. I thought mine was taking a while. Oh man, it has to rebuild all the icons on my desktop too. Well, yours could be like mine. It's reading and writing to the same hard drive way too much because I'm also recording this session, so that's also being written to the hard drive. And it's probably doing some indexing or scanning. I mean, these are all just guesses, but I imagine those things all have something to do with it. And quite frankly, it's probably time for me to reinstall my operating system, just do a clean install anyway, because I haven't exactly practiced what I've preached as far as good computer custodial duties are concerned. And so I probably have a lot of uh, unnecessary dependencies and fragmented files and things like that. Your SketchUp says you're offline, but you're definitely online. Do you have like a login or anything like that for SketchUp? Because that might be why it's saying you're offline. You might be offline to SketchUp servers. Well, let's go ahead and let's see here. I don't think it's actually going to be a huge deal. Is it preventing you from being able to do anything with SketchUp? Let's see here. Let's go ahead and get it open. It says it would work better if you were online. Oh, that's nice and vague. Usually that means that they have uh, assets that you can download and things like that. Because I'm pretty sure this doesn't use cloud saving. I agree to the SketchUp agreement. Yours looks like it's going in slow motion. Hmm. Like is your SketchUp installed and you're trying to run it right now? Oh, just the installation itself. Gotcha. All right. Well, I guess just watch what I'm doing for when SketchUp's running. Fortunately, there isn't like much else as far as that's concerned. Yeah, because I mean, who knows how long it would end up taking. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. If you don't already have the .NET framework, it'll need that to run because it's got a bunch of Visual Studio C++ libraries, which were probably created using the .NET framework. So they kind of go hand in hand. I've installed so many things on this computer that odds are very good that I already had the .NET framework. Actually, in fact, I remember a couple of times installing it. So yeah, that should be fine. As people begin to realize that the SketchUp guy looks different. All right, well, let me go ahead and let's get started with a template. You have to use a template in order to get started. In this case, we're going to use a simple template, feet and inches. That's it. I mean, that's what we're used to over here in the US, and I I mean, we're not doing any architectural stuff or anything like that, or construction documentation or urban planning, urban planning or landscape architecture. Like, we're not worried about any of that stuff. Woodworking, nah. Interior production design, nah. 3D printing, nah. No, we're just going to use a simple template. And that's going to be what we're going to work with. And it's also easy because it's the very first one. This is a general user modeling template with basic styling and simple colors. Feet and inches again, because that's what we use here in the US. If we were going a more scientific or universal route, we might go meters, but we're going to skip that for now. Work with what we know. And then just hit start using SketchUp. And shablow. Wow, look at this dude with his polo shirt and his loafers and his business casual pants. I'm very disappointed. I miss Stan Lee already. I don't care. I don't care if you're, what, 6 feet tall or whatever. I want to hide you. All right, so that's neither here nor there. Awesome, Jean-Marc. We should do that sometime, give him a face. So navigating the SketchUp interface. Many of you seem to be already pretty familiar with SketchUp, at least in some respects. As you can see here, you've got some lines right next to your weird faceless dude. You got a set of red lines. Well, half of the red line is solid and half the red line is dotted. You got a half of a solid blue line and half of a dotted blue line and half a solid green line and half of a dotted green line. And these correspond to different axes. So, show of hands. No, never mind. We've already done this. Remember when I was talking about Scratch and how this is, I think was last semester, but we were talking about Scratch and how like it's related to graphs and stuff like that, in the sense that like if you've worked with graphs in algebra or something like that, you might have. I'm trying to rotate it so this thing is out of the picture. All right, let's say that this is our graph right here. So insofar as graphing is concerned, you have like an x-axis and you have a y-axis. And then you might have a line that follows it. A lot of times it can be a simple line or it can be a more complex line. But it's all about, basically graphing mathematical equations. Well, the foundations of computers lie in math. By extension, a lot of mathematical concepts are extended to computers. So all this is right here is another graph. So this is like the x-axis, this is the y-axis, and then this is the z-axis. And actually, in fact, this is, I'll take that back. The red is probably the x, and the blue is probably the y. And then the green is the z. So this is a three-dimensional graph. So again, imagine your regular graph paste slapped another dimension onto it. And so now your graphs can go outwards, and come back, and go up, and come down. They can move around in three-dimensional space. Woo, 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 woo. Although you'd be hard-pressed to find a mathematical equation that looks like this. Although I'm sure there's one that exists out there somehow, probably. Maybe. Anyway. Yeah, that's just because I'm just drawing on a flat surface, and it's kind of hard to give like foreshortening and things like that. But like, a graph can have, like a 3D graph can be like shapes. So you can have like a cone coming out from the origin. And then you can have like a cube centered around it. That kind of a thing. Um, yeah. Anyway, that's all this is a three-dimensional graph. My SketchUp is frozen. Um, if you want to zoom, you can, whoa, what just happened? There we go. If you want to zoom, you can scroll the mouse wheel, like so. You can zoom in pretty far. You can also zoom, you also zoom to where your cursor is. So as you can see, I'm changing where I'm zooming to. You should still be able to, you should still be able to scroll with a trackpad though, right? Like a lot of times they have like a multi-touch trackpad, so you use two fingers to scroll. You should be able to do the same thing here. What do you mean? Did they, I don't, did they discontinue that? Oh, so you do have a mouse, but you don't have a scroll. Okay, gotcha. Well, you can always use the magnifying glass icon up in the toolbar and then just hold down left click and move your mouse either forward or backward. And that'll still allow you to zoom. Yeah. Um, the one right next to it fits basically everything in the sketch to the screen. You've also got, hit escape here in order to deselect any particular tool. You can either use the hand here, or you can either use the red and the green arrows, or if you have a mouse wheel, you can click it in to rotate. And this will rotate around a point, a pivot point, and allows you to get different angles of something. Now, again, you can do the same thing by selecting the red and green arrow tools up here and clicking and holding, moving the mouse around. Now, if you hold down Shift and click and hold the mouse wheel, you can pan, which is to move the camera laterally as opposed to rotating. If you don't have a mouse wheel, you can use a hand tool up at the top. Click and drag with the left mouse button in order to pan. And again, if you have any of these tools selected from the toolbar, you can hit escape in order to deselect it and, just use a regular old cursor. Regular old cursor. But those are just like the very basics on how to navigate SketchUp. See this guy looked like Stanley. I miss Stanley. All right, so yeah, your regular cursor is your selector tool. This allows you to select things in the world, like, for instance, this dude, or individual shapes after you've drawn them and things like that. You've got the pencil. Well, there's the eraser, which is to remove lines and things like that. There's the pencil, which is to draw lines. You can click once and move your cursor around, and there's a straight line that's drawn from it. Now you'll notice that as I move this around, sometimes you might see it better if you do it on your computer, but sometimes the line blinks different colors. That just means that it is parallel to that axis. So if it's green like this, it's parallel to this green axis right here, whether this is Y or Z, probably Z. If it's blue, it's parallel to the blue axis. If it's red, it's parallel to the red axis. If it's not, then it's somewhere in between them. So if I click again, hit escape, and rotate my view, as you can see, we've got this nice line that's sort of floating flat in the world. But that's how you can draw a line. And a lot of the way SketchUp works is you take a two-dimensional object, a drawing or whatever, and you turn it into a three-dimensional object from that. So you might draw like a free-form shape and then extend it outwards. or you might draw a rectangle and then extrude the rectangle so that it becomes a rectangular prism, or take a circle and you know, uh, rotate it around a plane and turn it into a sphere, or rotate it around an axis, excuse me. That'll make more sense when we get there. Now again, I can use the selector tool, click on things to select them. I can hit the delete key to get rid of them. Or I could, use the eraser. Well, I guess not here. Whoa. There we go. There it goes. It just had to stop responding for a moment in order to erase it. So you got, the eraser, the pencil tool. You've got a couple of tools here that allow you to draw geometric shapes more easily, allow you to draw arcs and rectangles and circles and stuff like that. These tools here allow you to turn 2D shapes into 3D shapes, among other things. You've got some measurement tools here, which you can use in order to just sort of get a feel for how big your model is in SketchUp. So like we could sit here and this dude is 6'1", I want to say. Oh wow, it really changes on your perspective, based on your perspective. So let's line him up so he's like that. I feel like he should be 6 feet exactly. But maybe he's not. Maybe he is in fact taller than 6 feet. Anyway, that's just a measurement tool. This allows you to comment on stuff. So we could comment on this, and it's Chris. The mouse shortcut for orbiting is just to hold down the mouse wheel. Just click the mouse wheel in and hold it down. Or you could use that up there. For sure. Paint bucket allows you to paint things colors, which is not really that useful right now, but it could be, useful in the future depending upon what you're looking to do. But it allows you to colorize things in order to, have them sort of to give your drawing a little bit more life and be easier to imagine and things like that. Because if you can give it colors, you can more easily distinguish all the different shapes and everything like that, and it would be, just generally easier to read the model. Like think about little plastic models that are unpainted and they're all gray. Those generally can be harder to understand what they look like. But a painted model would be a lot easier to see all the details and everything. Whenever I orbit the guy turns to look at me, but his face doesn't. Yeah, that's because the face that you put on him is actually a three-dimensional object, whereas this guy is kind of one of those 3D sort of cheats that a lot of old 3D games used to use, which is kind of like, I think it's called like billboarding or something like that, where it's actually a 2D sprite, but they can place it somewhere in a 3D world. But in order to get around the fact that it's still a 2D sprite, it just rotates to face you, no matter what angle you look at it from. So he's one of those dudes. He might be floating right here, but he's actually two-dimensional, and so in order to get around that, he's just always facing the camera. Obviously, save for moments like this where they compress the sprite. How could you move? So if you want to move an object, you can actually use the move tool up here. So yeah, actually, let's get started messing around with some SketchUp. Like, let's make something. All right, push pull tool. Yeah, okay. Let's start by making a really simple shape, a three-dimensional shape. So in essence, whenever we draw something with the line tool, it will continue selecting the line tool until we tell it otherwise, or until we create a completed 3D shape. So how can we tell which is which? Well, let's see here. One moment. Oh, never mind. Um, so if I were, for instance, to draw just a really simple box, it's not even a very competent box because it's kind of screwed up. You see how it turns solid gray though? That means that it is a shape. It is a solid object. And we can actually turn this into a three-dimensional object. I can use this little push-pull tool up here, click on it, and then just, with a single click and move my cursor around. It's installing the .NET framework for the fourth time. I mean, it sat there and refilled the bar probably 20 to 25 times for the C++ uh, libraries. So it's probably installing multiple files, but it's just, all it's saying is that it's installing the .NET framework, which is irritating. But, I'm not sure what else can be done about that. Now, I can also push and pull faces on an already 3D object, so I can sort of tighten this up so I can turn it more into a cube. And then it kind of looks like a cube. Or I can extend a side if I wanted to. And on top of that, I can actually draw shapes on the face of three-dimensional objects. And then on top of that, I can extend those out with the push-pull tool. So I can put a hole in this cube, and then I could extend just this wall out in order to make the hole smaller. Turn it into like a coin box kind of a thing. So as you can see, SketchUp is all just sort of about molding three-dimensional objects, kind of. Not so much like ZBrush or Sculpt or something like that, but kind of like that. Look at that. We have a nice box home that our imposter man can live in, who is most definitely not Stanley. But yeah, that's sort of the basics of how you could create something in SketchUp. Now, there are a lot of other tools as far as SketchUp is concerned, so we can spend some time taking a look at those. We already know how to orbit and pan and zoom. Orbiting is spelled with one T. Yeah, there is the rectangle tool. So I spent all that time, drawing out rectangles manually. There is also a rectangle tool which will allow you to very easily make a rectangle. If it gets this diagonal line, that means it's a square. Interesting. So this means it's on the red axis, and this means it's on the blue axis. Curious. Okay. So yeah, we can very easily make squares like that, do the same thing. Pull them out, push and or pull them to create a three-dimensional design. Layout and style builder, I believe, hold on. I believe they create oh, okay. So style builder allows you to stylize your 3D model, and layout builder is I guess a part of style builder. Yes and no. They're not necessary in order to create a basic model, but they sort of add a little bit of some interesting aspects to the model building aspect of SketchUp. It shows that SketchUp has been installed 2 times, but every time I click on SketchUp, it just brings me back to the installer. A lot of times weird stuff like that can be solved with a computer reboot. Maybe don't do it now. After class would probably be a better time, but that's a lot of times stuff like that, yeah, can just be solved with a reboot. Anyway, yes. So the rectangle tool allows you to draw rectangles. Apologize there. Things got a little strange for a second. Then you've got the circle tool, which allows you to draw circles. Pretty self-explanatory. And in fact, we could push-pull these in order to turn them into cylinders, like so. Nothing crazy there. Cannot push-pull curved or smooth surfaces, you might see here. Yeah, we cannot actually push or pull the side of the cylinder. We can do the top or the bottom because those are flat, but the push-pull tool, I always have so much trouble saying it, the push-pull tool does not actually work for those other surfaces. Undo. We can use the move tool in order to move things around. We can move it straight up on the blue axis, bring it over on the green axis, bring it down on the blue axis, and have it so that they're we can create a new shape out of that essentially. Now, it's also important to note that the selection tool does have different sort of contextual bits to it. So if we click on something once, we select the line. If we click on something twice, double click, we select a face. If we click 3 times, triple click, we select an entire body, a body being an entire 3-dimensional shape. So you can do line, face, which includes all of the lines that make up the face, body, which includes all of the lines that make up the body. Now you can single click on an individual face, however it doesn't actually select any of the lines that make up the face either, so if you're trying to do something with that, sometimes your results can get kind of weird. Speaking of weird results, distortion. Now, this is probably a good rule of thumb when working with SketchUp. So you notice I've been moving all this stuff around and I've been trying to move it to an axis, right? So I've been trying to move it by the red axis or by the blue axis or by the green axis. And that's something you're going to want to pretty much always strive to do, because if you don't move it on an axis, like so, I can't tell if it's just moving on the red and the green axis or if there's a little bit of movement on the blue axis as well. I can't tell if, other than, wow, spending a lot of time on C++ libraries. I guess just give it some time. I mean, mine took a while, quite a while. So it might not be just a terrible idea just to let it do its thing. If it doesn't finish, obviously within the next, I don't know, 15 minutes or so, you might want to cancel the installation and retry it when you're not in class, because it might be that the class running the GoToWebinar software is affecting um, the installation of it. But in the end, I mean, I couldn't tell you for sure without being able to look at it, unfortunately. Um, I can just speak from my own experience, which basically said what you saw. Um, it looked like it was doing the same thing over and over again. However, in due time, it ended up completing the C++ libraries and moving on to the next part of the installation. Anyway, I've given the man his box. I've made my weird windsock. I think this is a good place to call it a day today. I don't want to start getting too deep into the lesson or start really building anything. Again, because we've still got a couple of people who are still trying to get installed. I just combined installed and install it and made installed. Um, they're still trying to get it installed. So I mean, I don't want to leave you guys in the dust or anything like that. So this was just, today was sort of a basic run through of the very, very basics of SketchUp. We'll get started on making some stuff, um, you know, getting more familiar with it, learning a couple of the other neat tricks that SketchUp has, and hopefully, you know, it'll be a little bit more involved than what I had today, which was me sort of absentmindedly talking at the computer and moving stuff around, because sometimes it's like that. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and do the poll questions, and then we'll do the question and answer time like we always do, and then we'll go ahead and, you know, break for the weekend and meet up again on Monday.